your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, and thanks so much for joining us for a look at what's been making headlines in Alberta. The province's NDP leadership hopeful, Raki Pancholi, has pulled out of the race. Instead, the Edmonton Whitehead MLA says she will put her support behind former Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi. He only recently joined the race to replace Rachel Notley as party leader. Pancholi says since Nenshi entered the race, he has helped to more than double the size of Alberta's NDP membership.
In the span of a week, Naheed has more than doubled the size of the Alberta NDP's membership. It's an incredible accomplishment and invites so many more people into our movement. Rather than compete with each other, I want to unite us behind our shared vision and mutual goals. So today, I'm announcing that I will be ending my campaign to be leader of the Alberta NDP.
The Alberta NDP will choose their new leader on June the 22nd. Four premiers told the House of Commons committee this past week that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should ditch the planned increase in the federal carbon tax set to take effect this Monday. Premiers Scott Moe of Saskatchewan, Alberta's Danielle Smith, New Brunswick's Blaine Higgs, and Tim Houston of Nova Scotia all wrote letters to the chair of the House of Commons Finance Committee, Peter Fonseca, seeking a chance to testify at that committee about the impact a rise in the carbon tax would have on their provinces. All four testified via video conference, beginning with Moe on Wednesday. Smith, Higgs, and Houston all gave their testimony at Operations and Estimates on Thursday. And the Alberta government announced that if Budget 2024 passes, it will invest $618 million to improve access to surgeries and the acute care facilities that performs them. Health Minister Adriana LaGrange says the extra funding will help reduce wait times and boost capacity.
Through Budget 2024, we are investing $313 million over 3 years in the Alberta Surgical Initiative Capital Program. These funds will be used to renovate surgical suites and support areas in various communities across the province. We are also providing $305 million to Alberta Health Services to enable the completion of 310,000 surgical procedures this year. That's an increase of almost 6% from 2022-2023 year.
The NDP critic for health, Dr. Luann Metz, says the UCP are playing a dangerous game with the health and well-being of Albertans. She says they are doing so by pushing for more privatization into our healthcare by increasing the number of private surgeries by almost 20%. A couple of bridges in Edmonton are being named in honor of two fallen Edmonton police officers. The two bridges on South Anthony Henday Drive over the North Saskatchewan River are being dedicated in honor of Constable Travis Jordan and Brett Ryan. Both died in the line of duty on March 16th of last year. Government officials say the naming of these bridges will honor the memory of the two Edmonton police officers.
On Southwest Anthony Henday Drive, the eastbound bridge will be named the Constable Travis Jordan Memorial Bridge. The westbound bridge will be named the Constable Brett Ryan Memorial Bridge.
The two officers, Jordan and Ryan, were responding to a family dispute when they were gunned down as they knocked on the door of an Edmonton home. The shooter, a 16-year-old, also shot his mother before turning the gun on himself. The teenager died, but his 55-year-old mother lived. Contract negotiations continue between WestJet and its regional pilots. You may recall the mainline pilots reached a deal with the airline last May. The chair of the WestJet Encore Master Executive Council of the Airline Pilots Association says they've been trying to get a new deal done for the regional pilots for the last 7 months.
Next steps are, while we enter the 21-day cooling off period, which could put us potentially into a legal job action or strike position as of April 17th. However, we're continuing to negotiate with the company in the meantime and during the 21-day cooling off period to reach a fair contract for us and the company.
A week ago Friday, WestJet pilots stood in solidarity to hold an information picket at the Calgary International Airport. The union says they are fighting for better pay, working conditions, and career progression within the WestJet group. The Airline Pilots Association represents more than 77,000 pilots at 42 Canadian and American airlines. After the break, we take a deeper look at what types of online scams are on the rise and how you can protect yourself. That's next. As we come to the end of Fraud Prevention Month, we thought it would be wise to highlight some of the biggest scams fraudsters are cultivating these days. Up next, I speak with Corporal Sean Milne, who is part of the RCMP Alberta Provincial Financial Crime Team. He shares tips about what to watch for and how to protect yourself.
Fraud scams, at least in how they're reported, do rise year after year. Statistics from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre show there's always more victims reporting and more dollars lost. Sometimes that's by virtue of more people reporting, which is what we like. But unfortunately, a lot of it is because more scams are happening.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It seems like it's constantly in the news, another scam, another scam. And I understand too that phishing scams are still one of the top problems out there. Can you maybe explain how these work and what we should do to avoid them?
Well, phishing scams come in a variety of methods. Usually, the most prevalent ones are through email or text message. Phone phishing also happens. Typically, in phishing cases, what they're looking to do is to either solicit personal information from you that they can then go and use in a later scam, or if they have access to technology or your devices through the phish, like if they send you an email or a text, they'll want to direct you to a website they control, where they get you to input your personal information or download an attachment that will install malware on your computer, which will allow them to either harvest your information or put something like ransomware on there that will result in further loss.
Oh, it's so unfortunate. Now, we have a fairly significant senior population in the Lethbridge area. So are seniors at a higher risk?
To some scams, to a certain extent, yes. The scammers don't necessarily discriminate on age. They'll take, unfortunately, anybody. But seniors do often tend to be home more often. They often have more disposable income that they can unfortunately lose if they fall prey to a scam. And sometimes they're not necessarily as up to date on what kind of scams are out there. So that does often, unfortunately, make them an easier target.
Yeah, true. Now, are there any particular scams that are aimed at older individuals?
Emergency scams are something that often are pointed more towards the senior community. They're more commonly known as the grandparent scam, where the scammers will contact the victim and posing as a family member or a family friend who's in some sort of legal or other emergency. And they need that person's help right away, usually in the form of some sort of money. That they'll either get the target to send to them, or the more recent trend we see a lot of is the scammers will actually arrange for someone to come pick up the cash from the target. So there's unfortunately a number of ways they can approach that make it more complicated for our seniors to avoid.
Right. And then I've also heard of the landline scam, the hang up scam. And a lot of older individuals are the ones, of course, with these landlines.
Yeah, the landline scam where they contact the person and then they claim that they're hanging up and then they just keep the line open and the senior doesn't realize that the call hasn't dropped. And so they re-engage posing as somebody different and the target doesn't know that they're still talking to the scammer, but they have that sense of safety because they thought they hung up and called somebody separate. So that's the prevalence of landlines in that community, yeah, does make that one kind of directly targeted at them.
Definitely. Now, some people report they receive frequent text messages and emails about these opportunities to earn lots of money in a short amount of time by investing in cryptocurrency. So what do we need to look out for here?
Basically, when it comes to like the messages like that, anything that's unsolicited is automatically a red flag. I actually got a job offer text message just this morning, but it comes out of the blue. It's unexpected. So I'm not going to buy into that. The other sense to watch out for is they'll usually push it as a very urgent thing, like this is a limited time offer, or this is your one chance. And so that gets people to to act without thinking. And that's what they rely on to make the scam successful.
If an individual has discovered that they have been scammed, do they report it? Who do they call? What should they do?
Beyond reporting it to police, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is a big partner for police agencies nationwide who gather a lot of data on frauds and how they work and use that to create tools that we can use to combat it. So we also encourage people to report it through the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, which they can do by phone or online.
Still to come, it's Easter weekend, and that means the end of Holy Week. Up next, we discuss the significance of Lent, and then we roll up our sleeves to bake one of the holiday's biggest culinary delights. Stay with us. As we come to the close of Holy Week, including Lent, which ends the day before Easter, we wanted to take a dive into the significance and history behind the Christian tradition. What are the rituals behind this spiritual preparation that begins on Ash Wednesday and lasts for 40 days? Up next, BCN's Michael Clausen speaks with Pastor Rowan Crown about the significance of Lent.
Yeah, so Lent, as I was doing my research and making sure I knew my history, they believe it came in about the Middle Ages. Some say the 10th century, and it was developed as a time to prepare one's heart for Resurrection Sunday or Easter Sunday, and it was developed to really begin this time of 40 days prior to Easter Sunday in a time of reflection, of repentance, of remembrance of Christ and how he came to the cross, the death on the cross, and then how he rose again. And so what people would do is they would gather on what's called Ash Wednesday, and they would take ashes and put a cross on their forehead in a sign of humility and repentance. And then they would either fast from food or fast from something to prepare their hearts for that Easter Sunday. And the 40 days was chosen because really of Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness. He spent time in the wilderness fasting and preparing his heart for what would be his earthly ministry. And therefore that was taken from that and to prepare our hearts for Easter Sunday and Resurrection Sunday.
So is there any significance to putting that black cross on one's forehead?
Yeah, I think it's just a ritual that was designed as a way to say, hey, this is who we are, that we're part of the followers of Christ. Historically, they took the branches that were used on the previous Palm Sunday and they would burn them, and then those ashes would then be used to put the cross on people's foreheads. So it's a symbol of that humility, of that repentance, but also that continuation from year to year of spending time to seek the Lord and remember what he did for us in his life and on the cross and how he rose again from the dead.
Now, of course, one of the themes, or perhaps one of the challenges that the Lord gave us, was to take up our cross and follow Jesus. But another great theme that's appropriate, especially for Easter, is probably dying to self. Could you talk about how that Lent, maybe fasting on a broader scale, but Lent specifically, is more in line with dying to oneself? What's the value or the purpose in that?
Yeah, it's interesting when in Matthew 16, when Jesus says, if you want to be my disciple, you must take up your cross and follow me. Remember, that was said before he was actually going to the cross, right? So they would have related those words to that incredible death and persecution one would have on the cross. And so their understanding what Jesus said at that time would be, man, we must suffer something greatly, right? And so that really links towards our understanding of what it really means to follow Christ. It is a call to suffer, right? It is a call to forsake. I'm preaching through the book of Romans right now, and the message of Romans is this idea of surrender. And sometimes in our lives we have trouble surrendering, and we fill our lives with all kinds of things. They may be good things, but we forget easily who we really are to surrender to. So Lent can be this time where we're preparing for Easter, where we set this mark and say, hey, for the next 40 days, I'm going to surrender this in order for me to spend more time with the Lord. Some people use it. I'm not going to buy Tim Hortons coffee every day for the next 40 days and give that money that I spend to a ministry that reaches a city for the gospel. So I think any time we do that, it's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing, but it's also not limited to the 40 days before Easter. We can do that anytime. That's the beauty of being a believer in Christ. When God convicts us of something, we can actually say, hey, I want to do this because God is calling me to seek him deeper in my life.
Next, we throw on our aprons and turn up the oven to find out how to bake one of the most traditional Easter confections around. That's next. Welcome back. As we celebrate Easter and families gather this weekend, many people have some special holiday traditions, including certain culinary delights. I visited a local bakery to find out how they make one of those traditional favorites. Take a look. Well, Easter is right around the corner, and that usually means great snacks. We're talking cookies, chocolate, Easter bunnies, and hot cross buns. I'm here at Bootsma Bakery with Nana. Yes,
exciting.
So it is
Thanks,
exciting.
guys, for coming around. Yeah.
I bet you guys are really super busy these days.
Oh, we are. It's been a crazy morning today. I'm sure people are preparing for the Easter, and we have loads of orders coming, especially for hot cross buns.
So what makes this recipe so special? Is it a family recipe that's been around over 120 years?
It is. It's actually like tradition goes on, and the name Bootsma has been in existence for a long time. And our boss, who's Steve Bootsma, he's fourth generation. So you know what that means. It's been there for quite a long time. So that's how it makes that recipe very special. You won't get it anywhere, and it takes a long time to prepare. And this is artisan. It means that it's used by the hand with love. Our bakers actually take their time and prepare these out for you. So I'm hoping that you will see how that is done. We use that special, as I said earlier, a special blend of spices, and then only raisins. And then we carefully cross them with Bavarian cream, carefully done so you get the right lineup.
Well, I can't wait to see this actually happening. So we're gonna go talk to Steve, who's actually baking those buns. Okay, so now we've transitioned into the mixing room. I'm joined by Stephen Bootsma of Bootsma Bakery, and you're going to tell me how these delicious hot cross buns are made. I know it's your busy time right now for Easter, so it looks like you have a bunch of bowls right here. So maybe
Yep, so
explain.
Here we've got our flour mix right here.
And it's just regular flour?
And this is just regular plain flour.
Okay.
And then we have our yeast already in the bowl. It's a fresh yeast. And then we have our blend of secret spices. And then we have our shortening. And we use a vegetable shortening. And then we have our salt and sugar. And then we have a whey powder. And then we use hot water.
Okay.
And then our eggs, and of course our raisins.
So this is the part where you're gonna roll it into the little bun ball,
Yep.
basically.
Basically.
Okay.
And now we're gonna spread our dough out, and we're gonna put it on our plate. So we'll take it, and then we'll make sure it's centered. And then we're gonna take this guy, and it's got a whole bunch of blades, and it's actually gonna cut the dough into 36 different pieces.
Oh,
so
wow.
Right now it did all the cutting. And now it's actually gonna round all the buns for us. And then from here, we put it into a rack and then into the proofer, where it's gonna rise for about 4 hours. Proofer is basically a hot, humid box that helps the dough rise without getting a skin.
And it does that for how long?
4 hours.
Wow. No wonder it takes so long to make one of these little buns.
All right, so these guys are fresh out of the proofer. So they've been sitting in the proofer for about 6 hours. Just
Wow.
waiting for us.
Okay.
And then what
This is
we
a big
do-
process, isn't it?
Oh, it
How
is.
long does it take to make a hot cross bun?
6 to 8 hours.
6 to 8 hours.
Yep.
That's a full shift.
So then what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna put our custard going right across the top.
And this is the Bavarian custard.
It is. So from here, then we put it in the oven for about 20 minutes, and then when they come out, we put a nice thin glaze on it to give it a nice look so that the buns don't dry out as well.
Okay.
And then we pack them and sell them.
All right, so there it is, our finished product, our hot cross bun. Yours looks prettier because I already ripped mine apart, but that's only, what, 8 hours in the making there?
Exactly.
Yeah, all in a day's work. Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy Easter.
Exactly.
This is Stephen Bootsma with Bootsma Bakery. I'm Jeanette Roche. Thanks for joining us. Have a happy Easter, everyone. Coming up, the city once again declares April 7th as Green Shirt Day to highlight the importance of organ donation. And our local hockey team is now equipped with a very special life-saving kit. That's next. Lethbridge City Council has once again declared April 7th as Green Shirt Day. It was created to build awareness of organ donation and register organ donors across Canada. The day was championed by Toby and Bernie Boulay, the parents of Logan Boulay, who was a young Lethbridge hockey player who played for the Humboldt Broncos. He became an organ donor after the tragic bus crash in Saskatchewan that claimed his and 15 other lives. In other news, Lethbridge City Council is going to be receiving a report on the future of the NMAX Center. The 5,000-seat arena, which was built in 1974, already underwent a 3-year, $33.7 million renovation back in 2012. That included the addition of 18 luxury suites. The report says the well-maintained facility has a lifespan of 15 years. Council has to decide what to do with the arena moving forward, another renovation or build a new one. The report says the facility also has several constraints, including not enough space between seats, inadequate traffic flow in the parking lot, and an inefficient system for setup and tear down for vendors. The report also says replacement planning should start in the next few years to continue bringing more events to Lethbridge. The city of Lethbridge is taking the initiative to provide our local hockey team with a special life-saving kit. It's a first for a hockey arena. In this next story, we explain what's in this special kit and how it can save lives. A word of caution, this story may contain content that some might find disturbing. 5 minutes. That's how quickly it can take to bleed to death following a severe injury. And no one knows this better than those who play the fastest game around, where anything can happen in a split second.
It's a fast game, and with the sharp blades on our skates, anything can happen.
Last October, the hockey community and the world were shaken when American hockey player Adam Johnson, who was playing for the Nottingham Panthers, bled to death just minutes after being slashed in the throat by another player's skate blade during a televised game in Europe. It was this incident that prompted Lethbridge anesthesiologist Dr. Kirsten Derdal to approach the city about providing the NMAX Center and the Lethbridge Hurricanes with special life-saving tools. Enter the Stop the Bleed initiative.
I started thinking about hockey arenas and some of the injuries that we can see, particularly bad lacerations around areas that might bleed, like arterial bleeds. So I approached the city, and they were so fantastic in saying that, I think that this would be a great initiative. Let's get this going.
Stop the Bleed is a public awareness campaign across Canada and the U.S. that initially stemmed from the tragic school shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary in 2012.
And it involves enhanced training, medication, and treatment.
In the setting of a major bleed, minutes count.
Which is why the Stop the Bleed kit includes a tourniquet and hemostatic dressing, which is a specialized medicated gauze.
The exciting thing about the medication that we use, it actually enhances clotting factors by 10 times.
For Bridge City News, I'm Jeanette Roche. And speaking of the Canes, the first round of the 2024 WHL playoffs kicked off this weekend with the Hurricanes taking on the Swift Current Broncos for games 1 and 2. It marks the 8th straight season the Canes have qualified for the postseason. The Canes finished with a 4-3-1 regular season record against the Broncos. Assistant coach Matt Anholt explains how this team is preparing and how the series will be a real tough test.
It's a real tough matchup. They're the hottest team on our conference since the trade deadline. They've, added a lot of pieces. Connor Geekie is one of the best players in the league. Obviously, world junior player. They're old. They're deep. It's going to be a tough matchup for us. We know that rink will probably be sold out. It's 2,000 seats. Swift Current gets behind their fan base. Our players are going to have a little bit of a wake-up call, I think, in game 1 of how crazy it can be in there. Not a lot of guys have played in a rink like that, so it's going to be a tough series, but we're really confident with our group, especially with Harrison and net. He could win us any game at any time, and with how our defense core has been playing in the second half lately, anything can happen. We can neutralize, doesn't matter whoever it is, and with our forwards, we have some game breakers up there that can score at any given moment.
The Canes will play games 3 and 4 of their first round of playoff series against the Broncos on Tuesday, April 2nd, and Wednesday, April 3rd at the NMAX Center beginning at 7 p.m. As artificial intelligence grows in use and popularity, there are growing concerns about it. Up next, we examine those concerns with an AI expert. Stay with us.